Runsmith Enterprises presents episode 22 of Topics in Endurance Sports. I'm your host, Tim. Today is Thursday, December 13, 2018, and today's episode topic is the Mines of Spain 100K, which I did, and there's also a 100-mile with that race. You can find out more about me at my website at runsmith.net, runsmith.net. Email, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, information is there. Please email me with anything you like at chemsmith1@gmail.com. I'll repeat that at the end. And also, if you go to that website, you can check out my coaching services. I'll try to repeat that at the end as well. So let's get right into today's topics. The big topic is the Mines of Spain 100K race that I did way back in October. I am now I'm only 2 months behind. However, I really jumped into a number of races. I'm still 4 races behind. And this is interesting because I did not pre-plan this, but the 4 races I did were a 100K, 50K, 100-mile, 50-mile. So kind of it was funny, I was coming up with trying to figure out a word for this. You know, if it's 3, it's trifecta. But what if it's 4? Is it tetrafecta? No one ever says that, right? So anyway, I did all 4 of those in well under 2 months, in about 6 weeks or something like that. Which I have kind of a philosophy about that. That may sound like over racing or something. I think as long as you do that in spurts, you can get away with it. In other words, you can multiple race as long as you are then smart enough to take a break, which is exactly what I'm doing now here right around Christmas time. I got nothing coming until February, and even that is a short race. So I'll probably throw in a couple of little races, but not a whole lot going on for a while. So I think as long as you take a break, you can do 2, 3, 4 pretty long, gnarly races and get away with it. You just have to be smart about it. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the race itself. All right. This race is in Dubuque, Iowa. And if you think Iowa's flat, come do this race and you will be disabused of that concept. All right. Lots of Iowa is rolling hills. It's not flat. If you want flat, go to the Salt Flats of Nevada or something like that. That is flat. Iowa does not have mountains, but it is rolling hills. If you're a cyclist and you get out in Iowa and you get out into the country, you generally find that out. Yeah, you can pick and choose some flat roads, but you'll be on some hills as well. And Dubuque, Iowa is way up in the northeastern part of the state near Wisconsin, and it's in this special driftless area where, if I have it correct, the glaciers did not come down to Dubuque, and therefore they did not smooth everything out like they did in upper part of Wisconsin and some other places. And so you get this kind of hilly area. Maybe I have this backwards. I don't know, because Minnesota's got some weird bluffs as well. And that's what you have in Dubuque. You have these bluffs, just straight up rock bluffs, tall, like 100 yards up, straight up, these bluffs. And so it's pretty cool. And that's where this race is, in what it's called the Mines of Spain area. And I believe it used to be lead mining, I'm guessing. Here, I should know that. But it's called the Mines of Spain, like State Park or something is where this race is, just outside of Dubuque, Iowa. If you've never been to the area and you're nearby and you want a little day trip, go to Dubuque, and across the river is Galena. Galena is a cute little town that people like to go to, but go to the Mines of Spain and just run it or hike it. Go to Galena. There's some skiing in the area in Dubuque, Galena, some of these places. Worth a little day trip if you're anywhere nearby at all. Just check out Dubuque and Galena. Galena's in Illinois, across the Mississippi River. Dubuque is right on the Mississippi River. Also has a good aquarium, I believe. I believe we went to that once when my daughter was younger. To go, see fish and all that stuff. Okay, I'm rambling. Sorry about this. Let's get to the race. That's what you're interested in. The Mines of Spain 100K. It's the first year of the race. There's also a 100-mile race. So I drove up from Davenport, which is where my sister lives. That's where I'm from, Davenport, Iowa. It's like a 90-minute drive or something like that. And I drove up the night before, and I stayed in a cheap hotel the night before. Just allowed me to get up a little bit later for the race. And they had a packet pickup in Dubuque. It was in a little building. I can't remember what the building was. But anyway, there I got myself some goodies. So I will show you the goodies I got. You get a nice bib that's kind of personalized bib, which is pretty neat looking. And I will hold these things up to the camera. And for those of you who don't know, I record me talking. I just put it up as a video on YouTube. But sometimes it takes forever. I'm 2 episodes behind. Can take anywhere from a week to, who knows, months. Eventually it'll get up there. But I also put pictures on runsmith.net on podcast notes, so you'll see these pictures as well. So you get a neat bib that's personalized, has your name on it and all that cool stuff. What else do we get? We got a t-shirt. Great, looking for the t-shirt here. So it's just a basic cotton t-shirt, nothing really amazing, but it's nice, it's cool. It says Mines of Spain on the front of it. I like it. Got a cool looking drawing. On the back it says runner. So I guess to distinguish you from a pacer. What else do we get? We got a buff. I'm starting to get quite a collection of buffs now. I don't think I've ever bought one. Probably I did buy one, originally, but now I got it. Been getting them at races. So this is neat. Mines of Spain buff. I like it. It's cool looking. I think I've already used it somewhere. What else did we get? You get a waterproof map, which is nice. You don't really need it though, but the map is cool. It's a really nice map with elevation and all that, and aid stations, so you can carry it with you. That's the whole point of the map. But everything was marked well enough. You didn't really need that. We also got this bag, it's like a drop bag that you could use. I don't have that right in front of me, but they did give you a kind of a drop bag you could put stuff in. So I think that's about it. One of the really exciting things at the race packet pickup is I saw Ann Tracin. Ann Tracin is, Ann Tracin, possibly the greatest female ultra runner of all time. Yes, some of her records are finally starting to get broken. Took a long time for even some of them to start getting broken, but her list of accomplishments over so many years will probably never be equaled. She was there. So Ann Tracin, if you don't know, has rheumatoid arthritis now and cannot really run. So she walks, hikes with poles, and she's on this little mission to try to do an ultra in every single state. But she's got to hike them, so she has to find some with generous cutoffs and stuff like this. I mean, I really love her for doing this because, she is obviously nothing compared to what she was as far as speed goes. She can't win a race or anything like this. It would be so easy for her to hide and like, well, I'm not what I was. And it's just fantastic to see her out there saying, I don't care. I'm just going to go out and have fun. I'm a runner because I love running. I love being out in the trails. And I think that says way more about her than it does people who keep running until they stop winning and then they quit, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That's their right to do that. But it does say something extra about Ann, that she doesn't need to be in first place. She does not need the glory. She's happy just to show up, have fun out in the trail. So it was really cool. I got my picture taken with her. And she's a little eccentric. She has this unicorn, stuffed unicorn she carries with her, and she dresses rather flamboyantly, kind of hippie-ish, but super, super cool person. It's super nice. I mean, I was talking to her for like 10 minutes, and she was willing to keep talking, but of course other people wanted to talk to her as well and get their picture with her. So that was super, super cool. So she was out to do the 100K as well. Like I said, there's 100K, 100 mile. The race director for this race is Joshua Sun. He is well known in the area in Davenport and Dubuque, puts on a number of other races. I interviewed him in episode 4, one of my first episodes, about a race he put on called the 100 Ks of Convenience. A pretty unique race. Go check out that episode. And I interviewed him about that and also his experience at the Orcas Island 100. So yes, he is an accomplished runner. Everybody loves Joshua, and everybody loves his helpers. He had for this race, he had 2 basically assistant race directors, Rob Williams, who did a lot of the course work, and Jason Willits, who did a lot of the race weekend duties. So thanks to Joshua and both of those guys for everything they did. This was not an easy undertaking. And of course, there were great volunteers at the aid stations. Absolutely fantastic. I'll already tell you right now, for a first year 100, they nailed it. Completely nailed it. First year. Nailed it. Impressive. But they do have some experience with a number of other races, so check out their races. A little bit about the course. I'm going to kind of ramble here a little bit about the course. You can think of the course on level 1 as a 20-mile out and back. In other words, 10 miles out, 10 miles back. A 20-mile, I'm not going to say loop, out and back, okay? You can think of it like that, but it's not that simple. As you're on this 20-mile out and back, there are out and backs on the out and back, okay? You've got a few of those, as well as about 3 loops in this out and back. So it's a very convoluted, complex-looking course. It looks like spaghetti when you look at it. I don't know how you'd really memorize it. The aid stations look like they're kind of randomly here and there. However, it totally works. And one reason it totally works is because they marked it perfectly. I never even came close to getting lost. And if that's the case, what else do you need to know? What you need to know is how long to the next aid station. That's basically what you need to know. And they did vary from about 2 miles to 6 miles. So sometimes you wanted to know if it's going to be 6 miles because you're going to have a ways to go. But I always seem to know that. I think they must have put a sign at each one saying how long to the next one, because I don't recall ever not knowing how much longer it was going to be. Plus, you could have the map and look at it if you wanted to. So that's kind of the general outline of the course as far as kind of how it is, just a big, complex, goofy business. The course it's a complete mix of surface. Some places were not technical at all. You're running on grass. You've got quite a bit of grass trail, wide grass trail. You've got a lot of regular single track trail. There was a lot of going up and down, and there had been a whole bunch of rain just before the race, tons of rain. In fact, the Mississippi River, which was right next to the course, was flooded. So a lot of it was very soft and very muddy to go through. So it's going to depend on how good you are at running trails and running difficult conditions. To some people, it's like, it wasn't that bad. And to others, I think it would be absolutely horrible what we had to go through. It's going to really run the gamut, depending on your personal experience and just how good you are dealing with trails. If you've never run trails before and, just running on a trail is a little difficult, this would have possibly killed you because it was a lot of stuff that we had to do. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a moment, but I'm going to mention that the race started, I can't remember what time in the morning, 8 or 7 or something. It wasn't like 5, I don't think. We began in rain. Okay, we had all this rain, so we had a little bit of light rain at the beginning. So as we were standing there, was one of about the heaviest it rained. It was like 15 minutes before. It's raining pretty good. But it was warm enough. I can't remember. It was in the 40s, I think. I think the whole day was like in the 40s and 50s or so. Luckily, there wasn't a big temperature change for me because I didn't have to go all night long because I'm only doing the 100K. And I know I just had shorts on and a thin shell Solomon jacket. Now, a little bit about that. At the Indiana 100, I got this thin shell Solomon jacket, about my favorite jacket. I mean, I love it, love it, love it. Super, super thin. You can ball it up into the size of your fist. It's got a hood. It's fantastic. Well, about 2 months ago, I couldn't find it, and I was freaking devastated. Where did it go? I still can't believe I lost it. I don't know how I could have lost it. It doesn't seem feasible to me. The only thing I can think of is so tiny that either it's sitting around the house somewhere, smushed up, and I can't see it, or because it's so tiny, I literally just dropped it on the ground somewhere. I don't know. So anyway, I was devastated. I put a post in an Indiana 100 Facebook page, and I said, does anyone, for some reason, have a size large of this exact jacket that you don't like and you want to sell to me? And this guy piped up and said, I have one. I got a large and it doesn't fit me. And he sent it to me for free. His name's Stuart Siegfried of Ohio. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What an amazing freaking guy. Just sent me the jacket for free. And now I have it again. I did send him a little gift back. But wow, I mean, how lucky is that? Sometimes you have to say, you lucked out. And I really, really, really lucked out on that. So that's what I wore. So thank you, Stuart. I got through the race in part because of having this jacket. And it's not like it's totally waterproof, but in a light rain, when it's chilly, it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And like I said, it's got a hoodie, so you can put that over your head. It's just perfect for those conditions, which is exactly what we had. Let's see here. A little bit more about the course. Like I said, a lot of it was mushy and muddy. Some of it was not. Like if you got up high, it seemed to be better. Some of the high grassier trails wasn't really wet at all. Let's kind of go through, and this is going to sound rambly, but just kind of go through the course as you go on through. So you start the race at a park in Dubuque, like a little city park, but nothing happens there except the start finish. It's kind of funny. So you start off and you immediately just run across the street out of the park. Then you go down under these power lines. It's very, very steep, and it's this concrete, like, sidewalk they put. And it's so steep, it's even got like little switchbackies in some place. Very steep. So you're literally 40 yards into the race, and you're running straight down a hill, okay? And that goes down for like a half a mile or something. I mean, it's pretty long. Right after that, you take a left and you have to run on a road for a little bit, right past a sewer treatment plant, which we jokingly, or at least I jokingly, decided was helpful in knowing when you were almost done with the loop, because you went by it again and you could smell it coming up. So there was that. Then you kind of ran through that for a little bit. Then, if I have it right, you ran back up a hill, and there you get a view right over the Mississippi, which is kind of nice for pictures. In fact, they asked you to divert about 30 yards off to this little spot, and a photographer was there getting everyone's picture. You didn't have to, but they asked you to do that. I mean, so everybody did, I think. But I even did it again on one of the other loops just to get a selfie. I did it again, so I just added, this extra 50, 60 yards just to get myself a selfie later. So you can go over there and look, and you're overlooking the Mississippi, and it's kind of cool spot there. Now, from there, you went, I think, back down, and you went down these metal stairs, or like straight down metal stairs almost. Then you run past what is maybe the coolest spot, the bluffs themselves, the really dramatic bluffs, and you just got to see them, okay? So you run on this gravel thing for a while and go down some steps, and then you run in a very flat spot, but to your left you have these beautiful bluffs, the Mines of Spain bluffs. They're just gorgeous, and I will put pictures of those. I mean, I think everyone was stopping to get pictures of that. Just fantastic looking. After this, you just get a whole mixture of everything. You've got, like I said, grass trails, sometimes a long hill on grass trails where it might be moderately steep. Sometimes you have very steep ups and downs. Some of the trails were dirt. You have rocks. You have roots. All kinds of varied running surfaces. There's a lot of steps in here, and they're generally wooden or rock steps that are unevenly placed, which I find quite difficult usually what you can't do is get into a rhythm. I mean, I can't, if you got to step up once and then take another step and then step up again, you know how it goes, like your left leg is the one always stepping up. So then you try to switch it. So your right leg is the one going up sometimes, and the same going down. You don't want to keep stepping on the down step with the same leg over and over and over. So it gets all weird and you get out of rhythm, and there's a lot of wooden or rock stairs. So I found in the race I never could get into a rhythm. Okay, it may not have been horribly technical all the time, but you kept varying what you were doing and couldn't get rhythm. There's a few little creek crossings. That part was not a big deal, but all of the rain caused flooding. Like I said, the Mississippi River itself was flooding. So there was one spot where you do an out and back. You go out to an aid station, and actually it's kind of a lollipop. You go out to an aid station, a loop around, and come back. And there was part of the trail was underwater, about, I don't know, anywhere from 1 inch at the beginning, but then it got to about like almost to your knee, about halfway up your knee, like maybe 10 inches. But it was long. It was like 30 or 40 yards. You're going through it, and it's just high enough that you either want to walk or you have to do a high step to get through it, not easy really to get through. Kind of slowed you down. And the water is freezing. This is late October and middle October. So the water's very, very cold already, even though I guess that's only middle of fall, but the water was cold. And you did that. That was about mile 14 of the 20-mile loop. So you do it, and then you had to go back through it about mile 16. So every loop you'd have to do that and kind of freeze the feet. But that was only the tiny bit of water. There's a trail, part of it around mile 17-ish, that's right next to the Mississippi. I didn't see the Mississippi, but it must have literally been yards from the Mississippi. I don't know, maybe it was only 50 yards from the Mississippi. I don't know, because basically you were running in the Mississippi River when you were going through this trail. The trail was absolutely flooded, and it sounded like there's just no way to get around this. So the first time we went through it, it was over the knees, very high. And this is like 100 yards, actually kind of in two sections. You'd go through about a 60-yard section or something, and then there was no water for like 20 yards, and then another 30-yard section, very high. And of course, you're just fighting through that because it's up to your knees, over the knee. So you can't run, you can't do anything. And it's very, very cold. And because it's so high, you're moving very slowly through it. And wow, that was really, really, really cold. All right, going through that. So you had to do that every single loop. The funny thing is, and I was talking to some others afterwards, the guy I interviewed, which we'll talk about, I think he might have said this too. In a way, it was kind of felt good. Yes, by the time I got out of that section, my feet were numb. I couldn't feel them. And then when I took my first few steps of running, it was really painful, kind of, numb feet becoming unnumb. But in a way, it also felt good. It was kind of like relieving inflammation or something, because my feet are one of the things I have a lot of pain with when running. So I almost feel like in the long run, pun, it was almost kind of good to keep doing this. And I've noticed this before, really cold water in races. Yeah, it's annoying to go through maybe. It kind of depends, but usually I like it. It doesn't cause me blisters so much anymore. But it kind of almost feels good, that numbing and probably reducing the inflammation as I'm going. After you went through that big water, the creek that is now the trail that is now a creek. After you went through that, you ran a little bit and you did this big loop where you went up a whole bunch of stairs. This was really slow going up these stairs. Then you ran a little bit and came down. It was really weird because it felt like you came down twice as far as you went up, but you came down to the same spot where you started going up. Kind of an illusion of sorts. I don't know how that worked, but you had to go up and up all these wooden steps that were all uneven. Then you had to go down a bunch of uneven wooden steps. So that part was kind of grueling in this how slow it was because of all the steps, but still kind of cool. Then eventually you get back to, you don't go through the bluffs again, but you get back to the road, past the sewer treatment plant, and you have to go straight up under the power lines. And you kind of, if you felt okay, you could run kind of the first part, but it got too steep and you just walk. At least I did, ended up walking most of that up over the street, back to the start finish. So that's very roughly the course. I know it sounds kind of mixed up the way I said it, but you get the idea of all the variation that was happening with the course. The Mississippi, you might say, well, that's bad. Is that creek that trail always going to be flooded like that? No, it's not. This is a freak thing. The Mississippi, at any one point on the Mississippi, it doesn't flood that often. There might be minor floods here and there, but this is a pretty good flood. And if it does, it's not always going to happen at the same time. Actually, an October flood, I think, is kind of rare. Usually the flooding happens in the summer. So this may never happen again. So please don't let this flooding keep you from doing the race at all. Probably pretty rare it's going to happen again. I did the first loop in about 4 hours and 45 minutes, roughly 20 miles and 4:45. For loop 2, my shirt was wet from I must have loosened up the jacket a little, or maybe I was sweating. I don't know. I remember it was kind of wet. And so I got out of that into another shirt. At the start finish, I should mention, I had my car right next to the start finish. So I actually used my car as an aid station. But they also let people set up they marked off this big grassy area. They marked off into little plots. And so you could actually put a tent or something up there, an awning or whatever you wanted, you could put there. Kind of more for the 100-milers. So a lot of people had that. But I just went over to my car to take care of things. So I did put on a new long sleeve shirt. It wasn't raining, so I took the Solomon jacket and stuck it in my hydration vest. I never did need to use it again. Started loop 2 after fueling up and dealing with that, and I was not feeling good. This is really common. Almost every ultra I do, fairly early in the race, I will feel bad. And I always think, this is it. I'm going to DNF. I'm going to drop. This is really, really, really common. I almost rarely don't have this feeling. So I was maybe 5 to 10 miles into the second loop, and I was feeling really crappy. So we're only at mile 25 to 30 out of a 62-mile race, not even half done. And I was thinking to myself, and this always happens to me too, it's like, I'm just going to walk the rest of the way, which fortunately is not what normally happens. Then from that point, I'm kind of like, well, I'll go to the next aid station, and then I'll start walking. I start playing that game, and luckily, I'm pretty good at playing that game to the end most of the time. I was getting a really bad pain in my left foot. Now, this is kind of a long story too. I always have this pain in my feet, and I'm always trying to mess with them. Years ago, I had orthotics, and then I stopped using orthotics because the orthotics actually caused another injury, which I don't want to go into. I've tried various shoes. For some reason, I've been playing with orthotics again in a kind of a different way. And I've been basically running in them, but not using them while I'm walking day to day. It's just been a kind of an experiment. And I thought it was working. So I was wearing my orthotics, and I don't know if that was causing the problem or not. I was wearing a brand new pair of shoes that I'd never worn in a long ultra. These are the new Skechers Max cushioning shoes. It just came out with this version. I have been using Skechers Trail, whatever they call it. Skechers now has 2 cushion trail shoes, and one is more than the other. I've been using the lesser one a lot in races, and I really, really, really like it. So in this case, I was using the more cushion ones and these orthotics, and it was not working for my left foot, really getting a lot of extra pain. I already get a lot of pain as it is. My left knee was starting to get painful. I have a left knee issue, and it was really starting to flare up. My hip flexors, which again is a common issue with me in ultras, were really getting tight and starting to get painful. So things were not looking good. Everything was bad. All right. I still managed to run mostly through the second loop, but it was bad. It was labored and just was not feeling good at all. I had poles for this race. First time I've ever used poles in a race. This is a tip I got from Ashley Blake, who I talked about who I interviewed a few episodes ago for URock, and she was using poles, and so I bought these poles that she suggested, these black diamond poles, and I picked them up at an aid station around mile 32. I had planned this. I'm not really sure why I decided to do it this way. I just wanted to run for a while without them. So I picked them about mile 32, and that's where I got my headlamp also, because it was going to start getting dark. And started using the poles and the headlamp. And I did the second loop in about 5.5 hours. So first loop 4:45, second about 5:30. Then I put on my original short sleeves shirt, which I dried. So I put that on, and now I had 2 long sleeve shirts on because it's going to start getting cooler. It's going to be coming nighttime. I've been out there for 11 hours, so nighttime was coming. I ended up wearing just these 2 long sleeve shirts, and I didn't have to put the jacket back on. I did bring gloves with me, but I didn't need those. And I switched shoes, so I did 2 things. I switched to my Hoka Speed Goats, and I got rid of the orthotics. instantly my feet felt better. Now, having said that, I'm not going to blame the orthotics yet, and I'm not even going to blame the Skechers shoes. In fact, I think the Skechers shoes has nothing to do with it. Part of it, I think, is simply changing shoes. Just gives your feet a little bit different angle and may have put pressure in different areas. That might have been all I needed for my feet to feel better. The knee wasn't hurting as much. The foot wasn't hurting as much. I think it's the orthotics was the problem. It's one thing to run in them for 2 hours. It's another thing to run in them for 10 hours, which was the kind of the leap that I made here. But they started feeling better, and lap 3, believe it or not, actually felt better than lap 2. I was running better the whole lap 3, ended up feeling better than lap 2. In fact, in my mind, I'm the type I don't look at my watch very much, as long as I don't think I'm near a cutoff. I don't know why. I don't like looking at my watch. I kind of don't want to know how long things are taking. So I kind of thought I was running lap 3 faster than lap 2. Didn't turn out to be the case. I think part of it is it's very dark, so I guess you're naturally slowing down, even if you're feeling better, because it's kind of hard to run in the dark, especially in the technical areas. And I probably was just running slower. By the way, the water at all the water started getting taller. So that one 30, 40-yard stretch with water about halfway up the calf got a little higher and went to like 60 yards. The knee-deep water, that the first loop was about 2 or 3 inches above my knee, ended up about 8 or 9 inches above my knee. So it was actually getting higher and higher and higher. So this race began on a Friday, not a Saturday. The river was due to crest on Saturday. So it was actually growing as we went through it. Luckily, it never reached crotch level because it was cold, and that would have not felt good had it gotten that high. And luckily, I also had shorts on, and I actually was walking through it, pulling my shorts all the way up. I mean, probably looked very unattractive, but I had my shorts just pulled all the way up. And because I didn't want the shorts to get wet, only because then it's going to, capillary action up to my private parts. I'm trying to avoid those getting wet. And I have to feel bad. I'm only 5'7", so I was having a little worried. But there were some little tiny people out there. My friend Lori's like 5 foot tall, so there were some little tiny people that had to have been crotch level, or they're wearing long tights, and then it's just going to come up and get your crotch wet anyway. The water's just going to crawl up there. That must not have felt really good. That's not a region you want freezing cold water. Luckily, I avoided that, but it was getting higher and higher. I guess it didn't continue to get higher overnight. We'll talk to Adam, who I interview. But, the water was growing and growing. The poles, for me, seemed really useful. I really leaned on them a lot. Leaned on them as in, going up a hill, and was using them a lot. For me, they were less useful going downhill. Adam says, who I interview, says he could use them going downhill. I didn't feel I was using them as well going downhill. Maybe I was a little bit, but I think it's hard to plant them below you and lean on them at all. I don't know. I don't really know how to do that. I probably use them to stabilize a little going down. One interesting thing is I had no problem with running with them. Holding the whole pole was not a problem. I didn't put my arms in the little straps. I would just either use them and kind of put my palm almost on the top of the pole. Or if I wanted to run, I just did this kind of quick, and this happened naturally. I didn't pre-plan this. I just kind of did this quick little flip where I just kind of, threw the poles up in the air and re-grabbed them about in the middle of the pole. So it was kind of gravitationally balanced and just ran like that. And I didn't have to hold the poles hard. It didn't feel like I was carrying anything because the poles are so light. But that's what worked. I mean, I have done this before. I practiced with the poles. This wasn't my first time with the poles, and that's what I had learned to do before, but not in a race situation. I had no problem. I ran many, many miles just holding the poles. It seemed to me a lot easier than like stowing them away. That would be way more work to fold them all up and stow them away. So I just kept going back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes in a 5-minute period, I went back and forth 5 times. I'd hike a little, and I hiked with them as well. Sometimes when it was hard to run, I hiked with them. I think it really helped the hiking also. So it helped going uphill. I could just lean on them and take weight off my legs. It helped going on flats, and if I was really running, I would just carry them, not a problem. So that's about it. That's basically goes over the race. The third loop, I did finish in 6:10, which was 40 minutes slower than loop 2. But like I said, I felt a lot better in loop 3. So that's kind of a nice thing to actually feel better. Now, granted, overall, I was still becoming more and more pain. Overall, it was getting harder, but it was just a relief to have the knee and the foot pain not get worse in lap 3. It just felt like that felt a little bit better. So let's go over a few other things. What was my nutrition? As I'm almost always do, I eat about 1 gel per hour. And I don't care what gel it is. I supplement that with whatever drink the course has, in which I don't care what they have. They had Tailwind at this race. I had my Timmy Olsen hydration vest, 2 bottles up front, and I did what I often do. 1 bottle has the sport drink, Tailwind, and the other one just has water. And then I just kind of go back and forth depending on how I feel, and then I supplement with whatever is at the aid stations. I had a lot of peanut butter and jelly. That's my favorite thing. I had some grilled cheese. I had a pierogi. First time I ever had a pierogi. Those are good. I love grilled cheese as well. They had soups. I'm not a big soup person. It's like, you've been drinking all day long. Why would you want another liquid? I don't understand soups too much. I did have some in an upcoming race because that's all they had at this one spot. But I'm not a big soup person. I don't really need more liquid for the most part. But they had other hot things as well that they were making. I can't remember what, but they also had, chips, M&Ms, and all this kind of stuff. So I had chips and M&Ms I tend to dig into periodically, just depending on how I feel. I only had a couple of salt tablets. I don't even know if I ever need them. I think I don't, but I take them anyway, what the heck. Mainly because I've got bottles of them. And I always take a few Tums every now and then. I don't know if that helps or not, but I just kind of take a Tums every few hours. I did a little experiment this time with caffeine and Coke. Normally I will have a little caffeine before the race begins, like a Diet Coke or something. I know it's weird, Diet Coke, but this time I had nothing before the race. And I didn't even have any Coca-Cola, until about hour 8, and I had like 4 ounces, which is obviously barely anything. Then I started taking my caffeine, and I just take caffeine pills. I don't know, it's so much easier. I don't know why people do it some other way. I didn't start taking caffeine until about hour 10. Hour 10 in the race is when I really had caffeine. I took 100 milligrams at hour 10, and I think another one about hour 12. Maybe one more time I had about 4 ounces of Coke, and that's about it. I didn't have much caffeine. I tried to use it more strategically later on in the race. It does happen that a little bit after I took that first caffeine, that's also when I started feeling better. My feet and knees kind of coincided. Now, could be coincidence or it could be not. So now we don't know. Is it changing the shoes? Was it the orthotics? Or was it the caffeine? Or another thing I did is I took an Advil about the time I took the first caffeine. So I've got 4 different things that could have made me feel better, right? Figures. So I don't really know which one it is. And yes, I know some people say never take anti-inflammatories during a race, but I often take an Advil every 12 hours or so in an ultra, and it's never caused me an issue. I mean, taking 1 Advil. It's not like I'm slamming ibuprofen. Yes, I know some people say take none. But it's never caused me an issue. Is it really helping? That I can't prove either. All right. Anyway, that's pretty much it about the race. I do have a note here that the next day my quads, of course, were shot to pieces because I just don't do enough downhill training. The left knee and the left arch of the foot was aching, but that did go away after a few days. So I recovered pretty well. Overall, I didn't feel absolutely horrible. Like my upper body from using the poles a lot was fine. I think partly because I did practice with them a decent amount, and I do some weightlifting. For whatever that's worth, I do upper body weightlifting. Maybe that helped. But the upper body wasn't sore, even though I really used it a lot. My race, let's see my splits. Like I said, lap 1 was 4:45. At the start finish, I took about 9 minutes. Then lap 2 was about 5:32. Then I took about 16 minutes. That's where I changed my shoes, so it took a little bit longer. Lap 3 was 6:10, as I said. My official time was 16:52:38. 16:52:38. That might be my slowest 100K. I haven't done a lot of 100Ks. And that might be my slowest. I did the one in Kansas. I can't remember what it's called now. Ben Holmes puts it on. And it was miserable, miserable, miserable conditions. Also, all mud. All the trails turned to creeks. I think I came in second to last of the people who bothered to finish. A lot of people didn't finish. That was probably a similar time. Anyway, I was 44th of 62 who finished, and 10 did not finish. So 44 of 72 starters. Back half, but that's okay. Of the men, I was 34th of 46 men. I forgot to mention my socks. I wear the Injinji socks, and they work well for me. Other thing, a couple other notes. I noticed out in the course, they had some funny things. They had this big cutout of Tanya Harding sitting in a chair with a hydration pack on. So I think I got my picture next to her. And they had like these big things, like they had a gigantic deer. It's a deer with a target on it, like for target practice. And then I think they had a skunk out there. So at night you're running and all of a sudden there's a skunk, but it was a little statue of a skunk. Kind of funny. I think there was a bear. There's a big bear also. And they put these things like kind of behind a tree. So you'd run and say, there's a bear. So anyway, they were kind of funny. Got a wooden medal at the end, holding that up to the camera. Cool looking wooden medal. And of course, the 100-mile people got a buckle. You should go on their website or on myrunsmith.net. I don't know if it's on their website. See what the 100-mile winners got. Holy moly. It's like a prize belt. So it's a buckle that's like 12 inches around. It's a prize belt, like a boxing prize belt. Pretty cool buckles for the 100-mile winners. Just a few notes of some friends who were there. My friend Lori Tolchin, who is about 5 feet tall, she kicked ass. She finished in 15:47, 6th place. And I will note, I know you're not supposed to say a woman's age. She's 61. Really great runner. 6th place, really a great day for her. Danielle Langsness, another friend of mine, finished in 13:28. She was in 3rd place. Bonnie Bush, the ever-famous Bonnie Bush of the Quad Cities, finished in 19:45. And my friend Lisa Paulus in 22:23. And Ross Salinas, another friend of mine, 14:02. But he was not racing. He was running with a friend doing the 100-miler. So he just stayed with her and wasn't racing at all. So he's still finishing 14:02, just kind of jogging for him. He's a fast guy. So I just want to give a few shout-outs to some friends of mine. The 100K winner was Michael Borst in 9:17:47. That's right. He beat me by 7.5 hours. 9:17:47. He's a 25-year-old from La Crosse, Wisconsin. Interestingly, in a couple more episodes, his name will pop up. I interviewed some friends of mine, and they mentioned Michael Borst when I talk about Tunnel Hill coming up. The female winner was Stacy Hahn, 12:30:57. She's a 37-year-old from Hazel Green, Wisconsin. If you wonder why there's Wisconsin people, Dubuque is right next to Wisconsin, so very close. Unfortunately, Ann Trayson did not make it. I saw her out in the course a number of times, hiking with poles, and she was always happy and positive. And I saw like one time someone stopped and was just chatting with her, and Ann's just chatting along. So, what a great person. But she didn't make it. I don't know if she just didn't do the 3rd loop or exactly what happened. At the end, I should mention, they had Kentucky Fried Chicken and soups and rolls and stuff like that at the end of the race. By the way, actually, at the end of lap 2, they had the Kentucky Fried Chicken biscuits, which I normally love. I put one in my mouth, and it just turned into this big thing of dough in my mouth. I just didn't have enough spit anymore. So it was rather amusing. People were all kind of laughing at me. I'm just sitting there with this, because you're trying to shove food down fast. And, I ended up spitting half of it out because I just couldn't get it down. And I was trying to use the butter packets, and it was just getting all over my hands and everywhere. It's kind of crazy. So I note that I did pig out on chicken tenders after the race. And I did not get home until so I had to drive home back to my sister's house. It's like 90 minutes. So I note that I did not get home in bed until about 4 a.m. So a pretty long day for me. I mean, I finished, it was after midnight when I finished. So long day for me. The 100-mile race, those people kept going, had to do 2 more loops. After my 3, the winner was John Knoll, 17:45:20. He's 33 of Verona, Wisconsin. That's right, 17:45. In other words, I beat him by 45 minutes, except he ran 40 miles longer. Wow. The female winner was Jen Evan, 25:15:55, 34-year-old of Dubuque. So congratulations to those two and to all the winners and everyone else who ran it. And what I have now is that's all for me, basically. What I have now is an interview with a guy named Adam Page. He's from Davenport. I interviewed him the next day from my hometown of Davenport. He agreed to let me come over and talk to him. So let's listen to what Adam has to say. Okay, I'm here with a 100-mile finisher, Adam Page, of my hometown, Davenport, Iowa. And let's just go through things kind of chronologically. First of all, have you done any of Josh's or those race directors' races before?
Yep, done pretty much a majority of the Eastern Iowa races that Josh puts on. His 5K, 10Ks here in the Quad Cities.
Is that the barbecue bacon? Or?
Beer and bacon. Yep.
Beer and bacon.
Yep, at Sunderbrook Park. Some of the endurance races. He has a 9-hour race that he does in the summer.
Schutzen,
yep.
Yeah.
Endurance race. And then just a lot of kind of fun races that we do that aren't as promoted.
Did you do the 100 Ks of convenience?
I did do the 100 Ks.
Did you do the whole 100 K?
Yeah, I did.
I did just the 20-miler.
Yeah, that was
a year
a
or two
fun
ago.
one. That was a fun one. I did that this last year.
That's a lot of concrete.
It's a lot of concrete. Yep.
It's a fun idea of the race.
Definitely. Yep. Very unique, and most people don't really know about it. And when they hear about it, it is definitely unique.
He puts on the half marathon at the Mines of Spain. Have you done that?
Correct. Yep. I've done the half marathon a few years. Didn't do it this year. Volunteered this year. But, that's probably one of the most popular races. Sells out in half hour.
Yeah, I did the first one, I think.
First one?
Yeah, so that's good. So you knew what you were getting into with the Mines of Spain. You knew the terrain is like, and the hills are pretty steep.
Yep, I knew the course, and actually the extra parts he added, I had run before, so it was helpful to have that knowledge ahead of time. Went up a few weeks beforehand as well to do one loop of the course, which was very helpful.
Was that a training day they had, or did you?
I didn't do that day. I did it the week before because the training day was actually conflicting with the Quad City Marathon. So I went up the week before to knock that out.
Did you do the Quad Cities Marathon?
Yep.
I heard there was a train delay again.
There was. I was going fast enough that I didn't see it, but...
it was after you.
It was after me. So.
That's crazy. That's twice now he's had that. That was my very first marathon, way back in like 2007 or something, way back then. So
that's a good one, too.
Yeah, that's a great race. I need to come back to do it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's jump to race day. You drove up there in the morning, 60, 90-minute drive in the morning, so you were up pretty early. A little bit of rain at the beginning, but let's just go kind of loop by loop. Go ahead and start with loop 1. How'd that go? And however you want to tell it.
Yeah, so I went in with a pretty clear plan that this race being localized.
Actually, let me stop you. I forgot that. I looked at your Facebook, and it appears you have done 100 milers before. This wasn't your first one.
Yep, this is my 5th one.
5th one. What are some of the other ones you've done?
So I started about 2 years ago. First one I did was Ozark Trail. Oh. So that would have been 2016.
I'm guessing that's pretty technical?
Very actually similar to mine's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in that it's leaves have kind of just fallen. There's some roots, some rocks, a lot more there than Mines of Spain had. But a lot more up and down, continuous up and downs than Mines. So that was my first one. Second one I actually did with Josh Sun, the race director of Mines, Orcas Island.
Oh, I actually talked to him about that on an episode.
Yep. We did that in spring of 2017.
Okay.
And then I kind of, at that point, I was doing fall, spring, so I've kind of set my goal as always doing one at least every season, whether spring or fall. So the next one I did was Chimera in Southern California.
I've heard of that. CHIM?
Yep.
Is that like that?
Yep.
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it.
check
Is
it
near
out.
San Diego or
It's South Los Angeles, so flew into L.A. and
is there a lot of up and down there?
a lot up and down. Yep, more rocky, lots of climbing, lots of just
Would you recommend that race? Good race.
yeah. If you're trained for it, the sun and the heat and dryness and the overnights were really cold. Got to really be prepared. I was pretty well prepared for that one. So that was good. And then the most recent one before mine's was Zion.
Utah.
Yep, in Utah.
Oh, wow. Is that beautiful?
Yep, very beautiful. But I went in with minimal training and kind of just went in as I signed up. I'm going to do it. Good thing about that one was there wasn't a ton of elevation. It had a lot of flat parts, but I would have been a lot faster. But with minimal training, you can only do so much.
Some pretty cool destination races.
Yeah, and for me, that's kind of I have two parts to it. One, it's a reason to go travel.
Right.
And two, every race I've always been to, you see I won't call them the older crowd, but the not the 2030s crowd that I'm used to.
Right.
You see the guys in their late 40s, 50s, and sometimes 60s running these races. A lot of time looking a lot cleaner and sharper than I am late in the race. And that's really something I aspire to do. So between traveling and, setting the goal of I want to keep doing this to be like that,
right.
That's kind of my motivation for
I'm
being out
totally
there.
with you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's back up again to the race.
Yep.
Loop 1, how did everything start out?
Yeah, so I went in, again, it was, because it's localized, Josh is a good friend of mine, I really wanted this race to be not just I signed up and go, I want to finish. I wanted to put a little more effort into it. Nice thing for me with Josh's group, or our group here in the Quad Cities, we had about 11 people running between the 100K and the 100-miler. So it was really nice.
By the group, do you mean the turds?
The turds,
QC
yep.
turds,
QC
right?
turds, yep.
Right.
And then actually, between that and the groups out of Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Cedar Falls, Dubuque, there's a lot of faces. I mean,
right.
The race was heavily populated with people who, do these races all the time, and we all know each other. So I wanted to go out. I knew the course was going to be really runnable, in that it did have, I believe it was approximately 2,800 feet elevation per loop.
Per loop, yeah.
Yep, per loop. Knowing the course, I knew that entailed lots of flats, especially in the first 5 miles. Had a lot of flats. And even the sections with the hills, it would be a hill and then some flats. So game plan out of loop 1 was try to go between 4 and 4.5 hours for loop 1. When I had done my training run, we took it kind of easy, just scoping out the whole thing. Did about 4.5 hours, so I knew that I was capable of doing that. I believe I hit at 350 for the first loop,
nice.
So that was good. Yep, the rain actually cooled down. I think cooled everyone down. It was a little muddier. I think that slowed everyone down off the bat. A little muddier in that first loop, but yeah, it felt good. Just nutrition was right on. Wasn't worried too much. Probably wasn't drinking enough because it was too cold, but was doing everything I could. Quick flip at the aid station, or at the start-finish aid station. Was able to get out in lap 2. Ran with a few people that weren't actually from the Midwest. One from St. Louis, another guy from the East Coast that was there. Ran with them off and on, but we kind of split here and there. I would think second loop.
Started warming up at the end of the second
loop. Second loop, yep. So it was still raining for me at the beginning of the second loop. Kind of stayed cool. I think the tough thing throughout the whole race would be there were warm spots and there were cool spots.
I noticed that too. You'd go in and instantly it dropped like 5-10 degrees.
Exactly.
Kind of weird.
And then on the higher bluffs or the prairie sections, there's no tree cover. So the whole race had wind. And I'll talk about the heavy winds at the end. But yeah, so I think even in the second lap, it was kind of a coat comes off, coat goes back on mentality for the whole thing. Did the second loop then in about 4:15, so a little bit slower, which is expected for us average runners. Felt good still though. Really was feeling good about my time. At that point, I was being cocky in my head, saying, "Oh man, sub 24 is a possibility." Normal stuff that you think when you're feeling good. And
right.
I've done enough of these now that I know that's. Keep it in your head. Don't talk about it too much.
Right.
Because lots of stuff can happen. Third loop, same thing. I threw on some headphones for that one. I knew that it would be dark would be hitting about halfway through the loop. So I wanted some music to kind of keep me focused on that. Nothing really went wrong. Was starting to ache again, which is pretty expected.
Your legs just starting to ache?
Yeah, legs. Actually, for me, this race was probably my best race ever because I normally have knee pain after mile 45 to 50. Nothing that I can't run through, but I take it pretty carefully going forward. But breathing, feet, I didn't have any blisters. Feet were good. Nutrition was right on. My hydration was right on. So just knee pain was really the only thing hurting me. So kept up pretty well with that. Listening to music on the third loop, got dark, which wasn't really a problem because the course, the good thing was that there wasn't so many rocks or tree roots throughout any of the course because it's pretty well, there's a lot of foot traffic on it normally, that the race itself was easier. You didn't have to worry about being in the dark and tripping on as much stuff. At least I felt that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure the people who tripped didn't feel that way. So then picked up a pacer at mile 60.
So it's probably not even midnight when you're done with the third loop.
I think I came in
close, maybe getting close, but not yet.
So let's see.
If you're before
12 midnight.
hours or so, you.
Yeah, I think I finished the third loop at 14 hours, so it was probably 10.
Yeah, that's good.
10 or 11. Yeah, really good. And of course, then I'm still in my head a little cockier than I should be, but saw the digression and of me adding on some time per loop. Knew the last two loops were going to be with pacers, but still that's where the body starts really falling apart. So picked up pacer number 1.
Who was your pacer?
Brittany Fritsch, who's another runner locally in the Quad City group.
Nice.
Actually, her and I did Ozark together and trained for that together. It was our first for both of us. So she actually she drove me up and then volunteered all day, got about an hour nap, and then paced me.
Nice.
And I went in with a very clear statement to her, drive me as much as you can, make me run. And she did just that. So all the flats, I tried to push it as much as I can. Throughout the fourth and fifth loop, I did a lot of run 10 seconds, walk 10 seconds, and she held that pretty well. So that loop, I think, ended up being 5 hours, 40 minutes, which I was happy with, being dark, fatigue setting in. Got back and knew the sub 24 thing was out of the question. Kind of had sub 26 in my head, and actually was feeling good. Last loop, I picked up a guy who I'd never met. He was interested. He was going to do the 100K. He wasn't able to because he had to work, but was able to come up, volunteer, and he wanted to still support and be out there. He had never paced anyone before, so he jumped in. His name was Jeff Moore. He's done some of the Eastern Iowa races, and he's actually from kind of Cedar Rapids, Waterloo area. But he jumped in, plenty of conversation because we never met, so that kept things easy. And he didn't push me too hard, which was a good thing because my knees really, between the aid station at mile 80 and going out, my knees kind of started dwindling quite a bit. So did as much as I could, was walking as fast as I could. Started doing the 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. I actually had him count out loud just to mentally, help me. And we were able to push it there. Nothing really major that happened poorly on that last loop. Just, aching. You can only push so hard. Got to the point about 2 hours away where I said, okay, my goal is going to be sub 27. My previous PR was 28 and a half. So I was like, sub 27 would be fantastic for me.
Right.
I'm going to make sure I push this. I'm not going to do anything too much. So we were about 2 miles out. Time was good. Course ended, I think, with about a mile and a quarter, mile and a half on the road.
Right.
And kept the 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off thing, and was able to squeeze it right before 27 at 26:55, and couldn't be happier with that. So,
nice.
and I think just from a course perspective, the big factor, which was the water, the water crossing.
So for me, it seemed to go up 2 or 3 inches each time.
Yep.
Did that continue on? I think it
continued through the fourth loop. I don't think it went up too much after that. But yeah, I don't even know what the temperature was. It was unbearable for most of us.
Yeah, it was very cold.
Yeah, so just having the fact that there was a puddle, one that you thought, oh, this isn't going to be that bad.
Right.
That one was probably about 50 feet.
Right.
In loops 4 and 5, it actually grew to about 75 feet.
And the second one grew in there.
Yeah,
also.
the second one grew in. So 75 feet of shin deep water, which you had to go out and back on, which was not fun. And then the river flooding.
That must have been almost like 100 yards worth. It had a little spot in there where there wasn't, but
and then on the fourth and fifth loop, that spot wasn't there. It was just continuous. Yeah.
Wow.
So
you can't move. You can't go fast through it because you're pushing through water up over your knees. So you're going really slow, and it's like a football field worth of water over your knees.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Which a long way.
It had its, it's maybe a blessing in disguise for us who ache because did keep the swelling down quite a bit.
That's exactly what I said. Coming out of it for like a minute, I was in this horrible pain. My feet were killing me. They were kind of numb. And then a couple minutes after that, I'm like, that was almost like a nice ice bath. I think I just reduced inflammation in my feet and everything else. Doing it was almost, it's kind of like when you do a race and your feet hurt and there's a creek crossing and you decide, and you can use the rocks, but you say, I'm just going to go through the creek anyway because it'll feel good. It was kind of like that, even though it was pretty unbearable while you were in it.
It was definitely unbearable, but bracing the pain and knowing, especially from, then for me, on that second one where it got up to your knees, it was just fantastic because I didn't have knee pain then until the start-finish again, which was probably 3 miles. So that was actually a really nice thing. And then for us who were running the 100-miler, none of the 100K people really had to deal with it. As the sun started coming up, the wind picked up. And the whole eastern Iowa area had
it was
issues.
crazy.
30 to 40 mile an hour winds, temperature dropped a little bit, everybody's freezing. I fortunately was able to get done before 11. After 11, it picked up even more. So the people still out there running were dealing with headwinds, branches flying all over the place, leaves just blowing all over. And I was just glad I was out of it at that point. But I did have to deal with it for a while. And it was like, the race was difficult in itself, but then God's like, you know what? You guys should have been faster. Let's make it a little more difficult for you guys. It took a little while longer. So, that definitely added some complexity to it. And I ended up sitting at the aid station at the finish line for 6 hours waiting for everybody to come in and just was freezing because the aid station's on top of a hill.
Yeah.
Unprotected. There's stuff blowing from the aid station all around, and I couldn't get enough layers to keep myself warm. I ended up having to get in a van for a while just to make sure I didn't lose it. So, yeah, it was great.
How are you with all the stairs, either the wooden type stairs or the rock stairs? Because that, to me, got really difficult because they're not always, rarely were like even stairs. They'd be like 2 feet and then a drop, then 1 foot and a drop, and 3 feet and a drop. And the rocks were uneven. They're stairs made out of rocks, but really uneven. Are you okay going down those? I thought got kind of unbearable the more I did them. Are you okay with that stuff?
Yep. So I did the first loop without trekking poles. The second loop, I picked up trekking poles. So for me, I learned a while ago that upper body strength definitely takes away from the unbearable parts of the climb and the downhills. So on the rock climbs, the trekking poles were my savior in that I used those primarily. Wouldn't even use any leg strength to get up. I would just use upper body for those. Same with the wooden stairs. I'd basically plant the trekking pole into the wood and use it to force myself up. So the wooden stairs were actually pretty easy. But the same as you just said, the downhills on those stairs with knee pain, you can't really do anything about it. The stairs are just far enough that you can't really step on them continuously and get a pattern or actually have momentum going. It was tough. I don't think there was any downhills that I really, with the stairs, that I felt like I was moving quicker than I could. Stairs, it's definitely, you don't look at Northeast Iowa as a hilly place, and most people who go to that area don't realize that many stairs, and it takes it out of you. It did.
There was that one loop right after you came out of the water the last time, about mile 17, and they sent you on this little loop, and it was like, it seemed like it was 100 stairs up and 300 stairs down. It was this crazy loop, endless down, and these wooden stairs. And
there was always, there was a lot of little ups while you're up there. Yeah. So it was probably about maybe 100 up, and then
I mean, I know it was equal, but it felt
Yeah.
like 100 up and 300 down.
yeah, it felt like a lot down. You get to the end, and you just seem like you're constantly going down.
Yeah, and it's winding, so you don't even see the bottom. So you're thinking you're at the bottom, but then it winds around again. Was this your first time using poles, or have you used them before?
I've used poles in every race. My first one, I picked them up at 60. Just trying to think. One of them I picked them up at 25. Chimera, the race director, actually made fun of people at the beginning. I was going to use them from the beginning, and the race director made fun of people who were trying to use them. So I dropped them in my car before the race started and picked them up at like 50. And then Zion actually carried them the whole time. My plan going into the race was to use them the whole time, but I felt pretty good, so I skipped the first loop. Without them, felt good. I don't think it really impacted the race. Actually, the poles might have slowed me down. But at the same time, you can't really weigh out, it slowed me down, but maybe I'm not hurting as much because of it.
Yeah. This was I used poles. This was my first time. I had them at the first aid station and got them at mile about 32. Mm-hmm. So I used them for the second half. And yeah, it was kind of, I mean, I practiced a little with them, but It's still kind of my first time. But you're right. Going up, I really leaned on them a lot. Yep. I mean, I think it had to have helped going up.
Yep.
But going down, you get less help out of them because you kind of put them ahead of you, and it's a little more awkward on the down than it is going. I mean, I think it helps stabilize going down, but going up, it's helping take all this energy off your legs. So it's kind of a different use going up and going down.
If you use them right going down, and with this course being pretty muddy, they helped from a mud perspective going down.
Yeah, that's true.
I've kind of learned to use them to take away from the impact going down. It to each his own. I mean,
right.
It depends on how you use them. If I'm carrying them, I might as well use them as much as I can.
Right.
I
well,
even
I
use them
too.
I use them on the flats.
Yeah,
as
well,
just
I
kind
did
of a
too. I
mode.
used them as long as I had them. The only time I didn't use them is if I started running. Then I just picked them up and
even then,
held them.
I'll sometimes use them on the flats, just kind of like cross country skiing style.
Yeah, I probably did a little of that too.
Yeah, and you get a little bit, as long as you're not planting them forward, you get a little bit of momentum push from them, and it's just a way so you're not constantly just stiff armed with them holding up. You can kind of use that momentum.
Well, I definitely like them. I'll be using them again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's get to what you were wearing. What shoes did you wear?
So I went with 2 pairs of Hokas. I've stuck with Hokas.
Which ones?
So the first pair was the Speed Instincts trail shoes, a little lighter and not as much thickness as some of the common Hokas. So those were from the start till mile 60 and held up pretty well. And then I went to the Speedgoat 2s, so a little thicker, good tread. Definitely could tell when I switched to those running on the pavement right off the bat that I'm getting the Hoka cushion. So that was really helpful towards the end of the race. Wear all my shoes a whole size bigger for the races. My feet swell pretty drastically. I was surprised they didn't swell as much, which I think was the water.
Water, yeah.
So those shoes ended up being great for me. Went with toe socks through the first 60.
Toe sock and Gingies?
Yep.
Very interesting. So I also switched shoes. I switched to the Hoka Speed Goats at mile 40, and I wore the Gingies as well.
Yep. I think those, especially because of the going through the water, there was a lot of silt and dirt in there. I could feel it in my shoes, and I think that if I wasn't wearing the Gingies, that it would have rubbed between toes a lot more. It was actually better to have some dirt just in there with your toe because it wasn't rubbing as much. So I was pretty thankful that I went with those. Just common running attire otherwise. Kept pretty bundled. Hydration vest, went with just an older version of the Scott Jerk Ultimate Direction one. Haven't really upgraded to the more form-fitting ones. Just to me, it's like it's a vest. It's doing what I need it to do.
Right.
Although I switch out, I use the Soft Flask Hydra Pack bottles with straws that come up.
I have something similar to that too. Also.
Yep. Just they seem to work well. They slosh the whole time for me.
Yeah, me too.
But I like not having to ever remove to drink.
Yes.
So I've kind of just put a Frankenstein monster of a pack together. My trekking poles aren't the 3-piece collapsible; they're actually telescoping, which I can't even remember the brand.
Mine's Black Diamond.
Yeah,
they're kind of a lower end, but they're still like carbon. They're really nice.
Yeah, and mine are carbon, but they're heavier because of the telescoping. It doesn't allow as much packability because, like the Black Diamond ones that go down to the 3-piece, a lot of the vest you can put them on. These are a little bit longer.
I could have done that, but I never did anyway. I had no problem just carrying them the whole way.
And they're light.
Yeah.
I'm used to carrying something heavier, so it wasn't too big of a deal. And typically, I've seen people's Black Diamonds break during a race, so I like the fact that I know mine aren't. They're carbon, but they're not going to break. And then, that was pretty much the main gear I had.
Did you ever even need to put gloves on during the race? I managed to finish without having to put gloves. I had them with me in case. But,
I did.
Because you were out there later. So
the overnight.
Probably got cold 4, 5, 6 in the morning.
And I just picked up a new technique of actually wearing surgical gloves underneath my gloves.
You mean like latex?
Yep, latex gloves.
Interesting.
Just to kind of...
It doesn't get too sweaty?
It wasn't too bad this one, just because it was cold enough. Because it dropped into the 30s overnight.
Okay, yeah.
So started with that, and that actually worked pretty well for me. And the last loop, because of the wind, I was triple layered up with a vest on, an actual like thermal vest, and it was perfect. I thought I was going to overheat, but it was actually perfect. So
nice.
Everything was good. I'm trying to think of anything else I carried.
What about
special
nutrition? How do you do your nutrition on race day?
I used to overthink it, and now I keep it really simple. It's trust the race director, Pedialyte, and Red Bull. So I went in, had just a bagel for breakfast, drank a Pedialyte on the way up there just to get some electrolytes going, drank a cup of coffee before the race, and then to me, most decent race directors know what they're doing. I stuck to aid station food.
So you're not carrying any gels or anything?
I didn't carry anything.
Very interesting.
So start-finish line was the only place I really did anything. Otherwise, I was just drinking the tailwind or water.
Well, we never went more than, at worst, maybe a couple hours for that 6-mile part.
Yep. Yeah, aid stations.
Maybe a little more if you're really going slow, but I don't think you were going quite that slow.
No, aid stations for this race, this was probably the most bearable race because you knew everything was pretty well set to where it's either 5 or 6 miles that you're going.
You didn't need liters of water because it was cool enough. So
no, I don't.
A couple bottles, you're fine with liquids. In fact, I was filling mine up like 3/4 full.
Yeah.
Just so I carried a little less weight.
Yeah,
I never even filled them all the way up.
Yeah, I don't think I ever drank both bottles on any loop at any point. So just stuck with tailwind. When I got back to the start finish, did about 4 or 5 ounces of Red Bull every time. Drank some Pedialyte at miles 60 and 80 just to kind of get rehydrated a little bit. But yeah, the food out there, food was what it was,
Yeah.
I'd rather just trust what's out there than have the extra weight of having to carry something.
Yeah.
Maybe a goo or two, but I actually didn't do anything synthetic. I did candies and chips and whatever special thing each aid station
Just kind of trusting that what your body wants is what it needs.
Yeah, something that looks
if
good.
that works, then I agree. No reason to overthink and go all crazy about it. You don't need to.
And they had Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You're not throwing up every 3 hours.
Yeah, they had Kentucky Fried Chicken out there, which...
I tried to eat a biscuit after the second lap, and I didn't have quite enough spit, and it just turned into like paper mache. I had the whole biscuit in my mouth. I tried to put butter on it, which just got all over my hands because it was a packet, so I put the biscuit... I mean, I couldn't even... It was like 45 seconds, this thing stuck in my mouth. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, great job.
Thank you.
Okay, well, what do you have coming up? Anything signed up yet or thinking about anything?
Yeah, I got a lot. 2019's was a big year for me. Is hopefully going to be a big year for me. So, been racking up UTMB points.
Nice.
This actually... I did North Face 50 in Wisconsin as a training run for this, which actually gave me UTMB points to qualify for 2019. But this, Mines of Spain, was also UTMB points.
Right.
4 points, I believe.
You might have gotten 6. Because I realized
it was 5.
I now qualify for CCC.
Right.
Because I did another 100K earlier, so now I'm thinking about...
CCC.
I think UTMB's... I'm not sure I ever want to do that one, but CCC sounds
right.
Awesome. But
more doable.
Now I'm kind of thinking if I should put my name in for that.
Yeah. So everything I do is kind of around UTMB. So all future plans, if I don't get in for 2019, I'm just trying to make sure that my points for 2020 would be there. So for spring, looking at Zumbro.
I did the Zumbro 50. You look at 50 or 100?
100.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's a beast.
Yep.
The thing about that is the conditions can be all.
Right.
Did you see about the conditions this last year? It was insane.
So
you have to cross your fingers. It's not amazing.
And I'm okay with whatever they throw. So that would be that, because that would give me points to qualify for UTMB for 2020.
Right.
I'll throw in for Western States for next year, but this is the first year I qualified, so slim to none.
Yeah.
And then I just learned about the Gnarly Bandit series.
I know the name, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so it's a northern, upper Midwest series of races, and a bunch of people just finished it this weekend.
In Michigan, or?
Yeah, it's Zumbro, Kettle Moraine, Black Hills, Wild Duluth, and one other one that I'm not thinking of. Minnesota. Superior. Yeah, so it's those 5 in one year.
Kind of like a Grand Slammy type thing.
It is
call it the Gnarly Band. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
you're not going to try all those hundreds.
they're all hundreds.
You're going to try them all in 1 year, maybe?
I might.
Holy moly!
So I learned about that. If I don't get into UTMB, which would take a lot of more cost, travel time, those all be in Midwest races and drivable.
Right.
I might. So that's kind of my 2019 is look at that.
Oh, that would be pretty badass.
Yeah.
Even to try. That sounds even harder than like the Midwest Slam, which is like Indiana, Mohican.
I think it's
Run Woodstock. I mean, there's like 5 of those, but I think none of those would be as hard as like Superior.
Right.
And some of those other ones. And Black Hills, I think, is supposed to be really tough.
Right.
I think in part because it can be like 95 degrees or something.
That's what I heard. Yeah. So the only thing I really avoid from a race standpoint is major elevation. I haven't done any Colorado races. So to me, I've done some pretty hard races. Orcas was really hard. So I'm not as concerned with difficulty. Those more, it's about just recovery because they're so close to each other.
Yeah.
But that's...
And you only live once. Might as well go for things, right?
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen is you don't make it.
Yeah.
But you
know,
you might make them all. That'd be pretty epic.
I know my knees recover, so I'm not too worried.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to me. Congratulations on your finish.
Thanks.
Who knows? Maybe we'll see each other out in Chamonix.
Yeah,
if I get in CCC. I'll have to ask my wife if she even will let me enter. I mean, she would, but anyway, she's a teacher and she couldn't go. That's the problem. So.
Right at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, so that's what bums me out is I'd rather take her with me so we can make a nice vacation. But
right.
Yeah, we'll see. But never know. Otherwise, I'll probably see you at a race around here again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Good luck to you in the future.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye. All right, there you go. Thank you, Adam Page of Davenport, Iowa, for talking to me. That was very interesting. His finish time was 26:55:12, and that was good for a top 10. He was 9th place of 35 finishers, but on top of that, there were 25 DNFs. 25. So of the starters, he was 9th of 60. That is impressive. So great job, Adam Page. A couple other comments just from listening to that. First of all, I'll link a couple of some of Joshua's other races. I'll try to put some links to those. Also, we mentioned the QC Turds. The QCTUR of that is the Quad Cities Trail and Ultra Runners. Then they add a D to be funny. Okay, the QC Turds. It's a little group, an informal, basically just a Facebook group. I had forgotten to mention, but we did mention in there that this the Mines of Spain is 2,800 feet of elevation per loop. So for the 100K, it was 8,400 feet of up and down. And you get a 23-hour time limit. So a nice, generous time limit. For the 100-mile, it was 14,000 feet of up and down. 33-hour time limit. So a nice time limit there, too. But note that little old Iowa, everyone thinks is flat, 14,000 feet of up and down. That is moderately hilly, even if you take into account races in the Rockies or the Sierras. That is not a flat race. He mentioned the wind. I had forgotten about that, but the next day I was, out out and about, and it was super windy. It was like a little hurricane going through the area. So evidently he was running in that. So that's crazy. He brought up using poles. It sounds like he's a lot better at using poles than I am, but he's been using them longer, so maybe I'll get better. He seems to be able to use them on downhills a lot better than I can. He also mentioned putting the poles into the wooden step. It's funny he said that, because if I did that, they would stick. Like the wooden steps, they're all like railroad ties, so they have cracks in them. And invariably, I'd put the pole into the crack, and then it'd stick. And I'd have to yank it out, or I'd take a step and all of a sudden the pole's not in my hand anymore. So I almost avoided putting the poles into the step. I put it in front or behind the step, and he was putting them into the step. So that's kind of interesting. And the last thing I'll mention is I managed not to fall in this race, which is funny because in my last episode, I talked about a 50K I did that was pretty flat and not very technical, and I fell twice. And in that, I said, I tend to fall more when races are not technical, and this is just more proof of this. I did not fall here, and there was way more places to fall, but it's because in a non-technical race, I get lulled into shuffling a lot more than I hit something. Whereas in a more technical race, I pick my feet up. It's simple as that. Anyway, that's all I really have. All I'll say is do this race. Fantastic. You will enjoy it. It's tough, and you'll be very happy to get a finish here. Even if you, for some reason, don't do this race, go there and do a hike. It's a pretty cool area. You'll be amazed at the bluffs there if you're not familiar with it. And that's all I have. So again, go check out runsmith.net. There'll be show notes there and all my contact information, including email, chemsmith1@gmail.com. CHEM, like the beginning of the word chemistry. Chemsmith1, the number 1, Chemsmith and the number 1, chemsmith1@gmail.com. Also check out my coaching services there at runsmith.net. I am a running coach, and you can check out some of that information there. And that's all. This is Runsmith Enterprises presenting topics in endurance sports. Signing out. Have a fun workout.